Yeah, just set up the recording back again. And
Excellent.
so, yeah, we were talking about the uniqueness of Ali Ayyub's thesis. And you were already talking about how significant his work was. So, I just had a question about he was talking about like you really taught him how to approach musicians. So obviously there's a really detailed way, there's a very elaborate and specific way how you approach musicians, talk to them, uh, carry yourselves around them. So like how did you learn it, and how did you teach him? Because he was relating some very interesting anecdotes about you taking him you and him on his motorbike traveling across Lahore.
Right.
Anything on that?
Well, gosh, it's been so long. Now I finally remember things like that. Absolutely. He took me, uh, and I think he was the one who would take me to the sitar maker often. Although I have to remember if that's correct. I know I went a couple times with Ashraf Sharif Khan uh, when he was still in Pakistan.
Okay.
At a certain point, then he left when I was back there in 2007, 2008. I think, no, but maybe he was. It's all blurring to me, but yeah, it was really great to be able to have other people in Lahore, Pakistanis, who were also interested in this, who weren't necessarily directly from the music families, meaning that
Okay.
they were also interested in this, and it helped me in many respects. Instead of me just showing up, I think me just showing would have been fine, but they helped me. They assisted me in making contact with some of them, and also even sometimes translating in case my Urdu just wasn't good enough. And it got better for sure,
Of
and
course.
I was able to function much better later on. But um, he one of the things I did was simply you just listen. That's and not necessarily try and force yourself on anyone and do all the talking.
I
And
see.
I think, it's sort of like you interviewing me here. You're asking excellent questions, and
Thank you. You're replying
and
fabulously.
well, yeah, I appreciate this. And you don't necessarily ask questions where it's yes or no. Sometimes you need that, certain where you hear at this time, or did you do that? You ask what are called open-ended questions, where it's not just a closed question. A closed question
Sure.
is a yes or no question.
Of course.
It's that simple. You want to allow it to be open, so that way then they start to mention things that you may not even necessarily are seeking, but then they arise. And so those open-ended questions are really important. That's more like the how or the why instead of when,
I see.
or even who. Who is somewhat open. Who, what, when,
True.
where, hi, right? Who, what, where, when, why. I mean, why?
Yeah.
Who, what, where, when, why. Those
Okay.
classic questions. And so the why and the how are much more open. And
True.
those are questions that are really interested. Also, based on my cultural ignorance, I did things that actually were to my benefit, oddly enough. Okay,
Really?
this Nazarana.
Of course.
I didn't know that you were supposed to give Nazarana early on or during the like, let's say a musical demonstration. I always did it at the end. And so the musicians kept playing like, when am I going to get this Nazarana? Where's my Nazarana? You gotta, I was just like, okay, I have to give the Nazarana after he's done, kind of like a payment or something like that. I didn't know it was like an honoring. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean? And so they just kept playing and kept talking. I was like, all right, yeah. it was hilarious when I begin to think about it and look back at some of the videotapes I have of that. and, and in that, some of the so and I think it's a beautiful tradition. It was my stupidity or my ignorance that I didn't know, when it was supposed to be done. So that's a funny thing right there. But
Yeah, but like
and
when you're approaching this as an outsider, not like obviously cognizant of all the Gharana traditions, I think we can also relate to it to some extent. Like we also just aren't as familiar with the traditions and all those practices which just
Come with
you
the
can't,
music.
which come with the music. Like we've been taught the music to some extent, but we were completely ignorant of what was of the rituals and
mm,
uh, all related traditions and customs. So that's very relatable.
well, in there's different levels of outsider and insider.
True,
And one big one is, are you a musician or are you not a musician?
of
That's an
course.
insider. Even if you're a Thai or Khandani, it doesn't matter. At least you're a musician on some level.
True,
So, and then versus not at all. And of course, there's different class levels too of society. And it's not just in Pakistan, it's in
true,
England, it's in US class, socioeconomic class, high,
of
upper
course.
class, middle class, lower class. There's all of that, of course. But then uh, uh, there's obviously Atai versus Khandani in Pakistan. It's largely disappeared in India, that distinction, because there have been so many people not from the musical lineages who have now their own lineages, especially Hindu performers who studied their ancestors, their grandfathers, their great grandfathers had studied from Muslim ustads way back, over 100 years ago, and then they began their own lineage. One example is Buddhaditya Mukherjee. He's an amazing sitar player, Gayak Young.
हाँ जी.
Buddhaditya, have you heard of him?
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
He
he's
has
on
like,
YouTube.
yes.
It absolutely Vlad Khan style, and he's good. He's like really good. Smoking, but he studied from his father, who studied from, I think it's Anaya Khan, and so and so that has largely, it's like, imagine all these Atais being as good as the Khandani musicians, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And we don't really have that still, in a sense. I mean, there are some Atais who are amazing, of course, but I let people know that I was aware of this by my own term. Man, double Atai hu. I'm an outsider, because outsider to the culture, outsider to Khandani
the
musicians.
The
Khandani.
And so,
subculture.
pardon me?
Like, nothing at all. I just said the subculture.
Right. Yeah. The subculture. Exactly.
Yeah,
And uh, then the Khandani musicians laughed, and it's like, oh, he's aware now.
yeah,
And that brought down a lot of barriers. Like, at least I have some clue,
absolutely.
into all of this. And but one of the things that was really important for the musicians was I wasn't just studying text, and writing, and that's it. I actually play. I would play
Yeah,
the instrument. That to them is primary knowledge, and the only important one. They looked at books as being useless, and it is useless in terms of, if you want to learn how to play the instrument. I won't say useless. You can't really learn from a book. You learn from another human being.
absolutely.
How to play this music. Music is passed on in oral tradition. Even the Western classical music, with all its notes and all that stuff, they think, and there's some people who think it's superior because it's written down. It slows you down in Indian classical, Pakistani classical music. If you sit there, wait, let me write that down, Ustad. They're like, no, get it right away. You get it. Your mind becomes a computer, better than a computer. I mean, you just say a bowl once, da ta ta dagana, da ta dagana, then again ta ta dagana, da then again, dagana, dagana, then again ta ta dagana, da ta dagana, then again, and yes, and then they play it right away. They hear a
Yeah,
long string of bowl, and then you have it memorized. and you play it, and you only have to hear it once, and you got it memorized forever. And it was interesting that back in the day, before electronic recording, you would have these concerts. You probably heard of these stories where there would be an ustad singing, and he wouldn't sing the antara, istai antara, wouldn't sing that second part, or he
Okay.
wouldn't sing a certain composition because there was another ustad in the audience. If that ustad heard it once, they would have it. So that was their form of copyright.
So true.
You know what I'm talking about, copyright?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Protection.
yeah, yeah. You are so all very well educated. What school are you going to?
Mubin is in fact going to Maktab. So this school near I don't know, I doubt that you'd know it. It's already in the suburbs, so it's Lahore Zoo Safari. I don't think that adds much meaning to the address. And
Probably wouldn't, but I mean, yeah. I was wondering if you're going to government. What's it called? Government college.
and I'm going to HSN College currently.
Agenson. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, no, well, and so anyhow, about that written versus oral and so forth, I was slow, and I'm still am slow because I was so stuck on the page in my earlier training as a Western classical musician. And I almost look at it as unfortunate because it's kind of like jazz music or whatever, you know what I mean? Where you just hear it and it's all, because that's ultimately where the music comes from. It comes from here, from the heart, from the mind, from the hands, from your soul, and instead of having this written thing, and I call that instructions for performance, telling you what to do.
Yeah.
I play A, B, C, D on the piano because it tells me to do that because someone else wrote it and they told me to do it. And I found Indian Pakistani classical music much more freeing, much more free. I could become more myself. I created my own permutations in qaida. My ustad would say, okay, I'm teaching you these 3 variations. I want you to compose 2 more variations for each variation. And I would come back the next week and I did it. You would teach me da did it again, 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 da did it. I came back with this one. Da did it again, da did it again, da did it again, da again, da did again, then again, da did it again, da did it again, da did it again, da again, da did again, then again.
It has a little bit of a Gherwa vibe to it.
Yeah, it's going offbeat, like that did again, that did, but it's permutation. I just simply moved it forward.
Yeah.
But and it just came to me, Ahmad, right? It just comes, and to have that, be able to perform like that was great because I expressed some of myself. And you would think that wasn't, you think America, freedom, or whatever, and you're like, but their classical music is much more controlled. It is by, you know what I mean, like less free.
Yeah.
There's more freedom in like subcontinental music in the terms of what you can do as a musician.
Absolutely.
And I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. So I still do, of course, but yeah. And so I know we were getting far away from how to work with musicians, but yeah, listening, being a musician yourself, like being a practitioner scholar is very important. Obviously, Ali Ayub is that. He got deep into playing sitar as well as the scholarship aspect, because you only can find out certain things by actually playing the instrument or singing it. It's just the way it works. It's called experiential knowledge.
True.
So it's integral to the whole thing.
Absolutely. While we're talking about musicians and like how to approach them, how to interact with them properly, and all those elaborate customs and all, I'd like to just ask you, okay, I don't know how to phrase this, but if you, if you, ignoring that question, let's go on. The next question which we had was that we are trying to popularize Ali Ayyub's thesis. So trying to make it a little bit more accessible to
The general public.
the general public, absolutely. So since we know that the music academia, especially in Pakistan, is so limited, that to give it a wider audience and try to make people more aware of what's going on, we're trying to popularize it, especially in schools for kids of our age, so high school, middle school students, just to figure out what's going on. So what's the sitar? That's the first question which many wouldn't be very aware of, and then going beyond into the traditions and all. So do you think that it's a realistic approach to expect such a um, fine, finely detailed and nuanced thesis? Like earlier, you really went into like the devil in the details in his thesis is just ridiculous. It's
Right.
at an extraordinary level. So do you think that we're like destroying the beauty of the thesis if we try to explain it to somebody who just isn't aware of those intricacies? Nor are we, in fact.
No, you're only just expanding it. You're trying to develop it further. He did the initial primary research, and like so many academic theses, sometimes they just sit there and no one else looks at it, right? No one else will read it. And what you can do, and you can work with him and work with people. I know you might have resources. It doesn't matter where you get them, at home or at your school or at somewhere else, or maybe at someone's studio. I would suggest either doing a podcast with sound. What you do is you talk, you could interview some of these sitar players, have them perform, and it becomes a podcast. You could do a series of videos. What you do is you expand beyond just written text. The reason is that people relate to audio and video even more so than ever before. If they can watch a video, then that's what they want to do. And, throw it on Instagram or whatever. I don't know. I don't do any of that stuff personally. But that is the way you are going to go viral. You've heard of that term, right?
Of course.
And so what you do is you take his text and you can even read certain portions of it, or you could have Ali Ayyub speak it, the author speak it.
Absolutely.
And you take that one spotlight on maybe one of those sitar players or on the tradition, and you could do shorter videos, or you could do longer ones, part 1 hour, part 2 1 hour. It depends. But you already have some of the text written in Ali Ayyub's thesis, and you to whatever extent he is available, or he can give you guidance in terms of how to develop that. And you could write out yourself certain thing, and you can simply read the text. You don't have to be on video yourself, and you have even just pictures of different sitar players while the sitar music is playing, or maybe not while you speak a bit and then the sitar comes in. It's like creating documentaries, film documentaries.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do a big 2-hour version unless you want to. The Pakistani sitar in video. I'm a media librarian, meaning I work with lots of media.
Yeah.
That's my primary work. I don't really teach musicology much anymore. Individually with certain students, if they're interested in this. I mainly do audio production myself. I have my own SoundCloud with my channel and my own electronic musician. It's not EDM. Some of it's just experimental, but you'll hear different ragas in there. I'm working on Rageshri. It's amazing. These electronic producers, they should look at the raga system. It is so rich. Full of ideas going beyond the Western classical scales. It's very minimal. We have modes in Western classical too, but it's not like the raga system. The raga system is highly developed over thousands of years. It is amazing. They thought of everything in that system.
Absolutely.
Everything they developed it to the fullest extent. Even so many ragas that aren't performed, you can see in some of these shastras, the Shastriya Sangeet, but also in the Persian elements too, especially the North Indian Pakistani tradition, which is that fusion between the two, from maqam system. It's very clear how it comes from there. Even don't mind the quarter tones of Arabic music. That's something that developed later, but we see such a clear connection between those two. But it's not. It is not that. The flavor is that there's some element of that older, much older tradition, that has come together, and I think it's greatly improved. It's amazing, and so. I'm going off on a side, but getting back to how to promote sitar, I think that is one of the best ways. And try and do the production quality the best you can, but you can just learn about that. And it doesn't matter what you end up doing with your life. If you become a businessman or you become an accountant, doctor, lawyer, or whatever, you can still do that.
That's true.
You can still on your spare time. In fact, some of the most brilliant people are like your medical doctor also plays really good sitar. Because they're just high achievers. They're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
the possibilities are pretty much limited to how far technology can take us.
Well, and your own capabilities and your interest in what's the term, mehnat, hard work.
Yeah, hard work, mehnat.
There's no replacement for that.
That's true. That's true. Like following up on what you were talking about, that we should try to kind of use audio visual media to put this message out to like reach a wider audience. I just had a question that would you be open to like just giving us like a minute or so on each gharana, or like I know it's been a long time since perhaps you went through those details of Aliyoub's thesis, but like if you want to talk about the Indore gharana or some other gharanas which Aliyoub has covered, that would be very cool.
Well, I quite honestly, I'd have to go back through his thesis to remember it all.
Okay.
That it wasn't one of my specialties, so he did stuff that I never really learned.
Okay.
Like the one in Karachi.
Sanya?
Yeah,
Sanya
probably
was very prominent there.
Yeah, right. And it was and you know this better than I do this because I simply can't remember who was the one of the main persons he interviewed. My hairstyle, bald.
Ustad Rais Khan of the Indore Gharana, right? Yes.
Nafis, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. Like, for instance, even the way he would put the sitar on his lap, instead of on his foot. You can say that's incorrect, but well, no, it's a different tradition. If it ends up sounding good, that's the most important thing, right? Play with one finger, chikari only, like whatever. If it sounds great. Usually when you need to,
it's a little hard.
You need to sometimes usually invoke all the fingers themselves for a strong strum, or pluck, because I studied some sitar too.
Okay.
And I even have a recording of myself playing Rag Amen.
Wow.
And if I can find it, I'll send it to you. It's not nothing great, but it's fun. It proves that I could play it.
You need that, definitely.
Proof, legit.
Absolutely.
It sounds horrible, but still good. I'll send it to you guys, okay?
Sure.
And it's me, absolutely me. You'll hear it like, oh, double atai. But aside from that, I really wouldn't be able to talk too much other than, the main tradition I had learned from was, that I had contact with Ustad Ashraf Sharif Khan's style, which was, very Gayaki, but it was his own thing. It wasn't necessarily purely, from that lineage, because he was clearly taking from his father, but also influenced by other people of Indore style. So
I was just thinking that if like I understand your expertise is not the sitar gharanas of which Ali you researched so in depth. So I was just thinking that could we arrange a chat with between you and Ali Ayub, like a reunion, and you could just chat about your experiences at NCA, just like what was going on then. Like it would give us a much fuller picture, a 3D picture of the whole scenario at that time, and then also perhaps your own perspectives on his work. It would be pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, so I would, it would be a pleasure to see him again and talk
Okay.
with him again. So
I'll ping him and let's see if that can um, we can get something out of that.
yes,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
cool. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, you know, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you
Absolutely.
both.
Likewise.
Yeah.
And on
And
an ending note,
pardon me.
I was just thinking that on an ending note, like completely unrelated to this matter, but did you have any difficulty in learning the writing system of either Urdu or Hindi if you learned it?
It's easier to spell in Urdu and Hindi than in English.
Yes, that is
It
quite
is.
obvious.
It's easier.
Yes,
It's so much better. You know, it's like
yes.
I started to get decent at it, and I was like, oh, if only English, you know, because I do not envy people who have to learn English. Like rough, ROUGH
Yes.
makes no sense. That it's stupid. It's dumb. But it's there. And you're considered, if you do RUF, that's incorrect because that's what the rules say. But you know, so
It should be like putting the star in your lap or on your foot. Like whatever works.
right, you know, but yeah. So yeah, that's some yeah, anyhow. So no, in it's I actually had studied at the Berkeley Urdu language program in Pakistan before they shut it down. They went to Lucknow instead in India.
I see.
Unfortunately, you know, very sad, but they I learned calligraphy.
Oh,
Yes, traditional Persian
Wow.
Urdu calligraphy, and I wasn't all that great at it, but wow. And we had one person who was, you know, Ghair
It's
Mulki or
amazing.
whatever, and she got really good at it. Like she was like the ustad who was teaching was like, my student, my great student, and amazing calligraphy. And she was an artist, I think. So, you know, it
Yeah.
helps.
That's
But
pretty cool.
it's gorgeous. You know what I mean? Of course, English, every language has its calligrapher. You know what I mean? Calligraphy. And so I'm not, but it's especially beautiful, you know, because it comes from that Perso-Arabic Islamic tradition of poetry and calligraphy. So anyhow, well, I probably have to go. I know you do too. It's getting late. What time is it in Lahore right now?
Right now it's
7:08
yeah.
p.m.
Oh, okay. 7
Yeah.
p.m. That's
Yeah.
not so bad.
Not
So
bad at
you're
all.
about 11 hours, no, 12 hours.
Right.
It's 9:08 here
Okay,
in
so
the morning.
10.
10.
Yeah, 10.
10. Okay. I
Yeah.
couldn't quite remember if it was 10 hours. So, well, this time usually works really well for me. Is Saturday or a Sunday morning for me.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
okay,
Thank
excellent.
you so much.
Well,
It was a
yeah,
pleasure
it's been
meeting you
quite
and
a pleasure,
wonderful interview.
and yeah, to be continued.
Absolutely. I'll
Yeah.
talk to Ali Ayub and let's see if we can arrange something in the coming weeks.
Sure, that would be wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.